Sitar is a plucked stringed instrument used in Pakistani classical music. The instrument flourished under the Mughal Empire. Sitar is named after a Persian word, setar, meaning three strings. It derives its distinctive timbre and resonance from sympathetic strings, bridge design, a long hollow neck, and a gourd-shaped resonance chamber. There are many popular modern styles of sitar, offered in a variety of substyles and decorative patterns.
Assalamu alaikum, you're watching Views and News and I'm Faisal Rehman live from our Islamabad studios. Today we'll be talking about the visit of the Prime Minister Imran Khan to the United States of America. Now he has landed in Khattak and holding talks with the leadership out there as well. But generally, whether you talk about People's Party or other political parties, everybody has appreciated this visit of the Prime Minister to the United States of America, 3-day official visit where he held very important meetings with the US President, with their cabinet members, also addressed the Pakistani community out there. I think that was a great display when we witnessed more than 35,000 Pakistanis. They all gathered in the arena and it was full as if a baseball match was going on or something of that sort. But having said that, great recognition by the American authorities and also now one can say this is the beginning of a new era. Now, the relationship between Pakistan and USA, since it's very historic and ever since Pakistan came into being, we were always in the US camp. But recently, especially post 9/11, things got a little eroded as far as the understanding and the trust is concerned. But now, the Prime Minister has very categorically mentioned that the friendship or the mutual interest is totally based on trust and mutual respect. Now, that is something very important. And as far as the US President is concerned, he has given a very good signal regarding Kashmir. He says that he is ready to do the arbitration. Regarding trade, he said it's not only 20%, it can go up to 20 folds, 20 times than the current trade between the two countries. He also mentioned about Pakistan and Indian issues. And he said that it is better that the two countries, both are since nuclear powers, they should sort out their issues. And as far as Afghanistan is concerned, I think they have really recognized the importance of Pakistan, appreciated the efforts made by Pakistan in this regard. And now both the leaders believe that the dialogue process seems to be in its final stage and it is going to be a very meaningful, result-oriented final discussion. These are the major areas which we'll be talking about. Yesterday also the Chief of Army Staff went and visited Pentagon, held some very important meetings over there as well, and he was received with great enthusiasm. 21-gun salute was also presented along with the Guard of Honor. So that seems to be something very interesting as well. To talk about this, let me introduce you to our panelists first. On my right is Muhammad Ziauddin Saab, senior journalist, senior columnist. Thank you very much, sir. And we also have with us Asif Durrani Saab. He's a former ambassador, senior diplomat. Sir, thank you very much. And we also have with us Brigadier retired Tipu Sultan Saab. He's a senior analyst and a political commentator. Thank you very much, sir. Now, Zia Saab, let's start off from this Afghan issue first, sir. Because I'm sure, sir, you must have gone through all the details where the American leadership has really appreciated the efforts of Pakistan. And they have fully recognized the importance now. And Donald Trump very clearly said that Pakistani effort was much needed And now, since the previous governments, for some reason, were not cooperating very well with the US administration, whether you talk about the US presence or otherwise, but this time he says that I have total trust in Imran Khan and the current leadership, whether you talk about the military or otherwise. Let's have a quick look at this short, sir, and then we'll expect the answer from you.
We again have had a difficult relationship with Afghanistan, and so we have reached out. I have invited President Ghani to Pakistan. Fortunately, we're all moving towards the same direction. There's a convergence now in Pakistan, in the US, that there is no military solution in Afghanistan. So we're all working towards the peace process. Afghanistan, we again have had a difficult relationship.
Yeah. So, Zia Saab, your take, sir.
Well, yes, Afghanistan perhaps is the topmost issue in the minds of the Americans. Already, the President has said, American President said that he wants to withdraw from the 18-year-old war. And he's also said that he could have won this war by completely snuffing Afghanistan from the
7 to 10
face of
days
the earth
max. That's
in
what he
10
said.
days. So what he actually meant by that was, look, I could have won this war by wiping out Afghanistan, but I don't want to kill so many people. But I would like to have an Afghanistan which would function after our withdrawal as the wishes of the Americans' wishes, desires, how the Americans want Afghanistan to shape up and thrive. So for that, I believe Pakistan for them is very important. Pakistan has been associated very closely with the Afghan issue since the first Afghan war. I mean, Pakistan has been a neighbor of Afghanistan since the very beginning, and we have had, love and hate relationship with Afghans. But after the first Afghan war, we came very close to Afghanistan, and at one point, if you recall Hamid Gul's, wishes, he wanted to create strategic depth in Afghanistan.
General Beg also.
Yeah, General Beg as well. So, and then if you look at the history, I mean, starting from the first Afghan war, we first helped the Americans get rid of the socialists. I mean, so Soviet Union was helping them. I mean, they got rid of Soviet Union and the supporters of Soviet Union. Then we helped the Taliban to get rid of the Mujahideen. Then we helped again the Americans to get rid of the Mujahideen, to get rid of the Taliban. Now at this juncture, the Taliban are trying to take over the country, which they have not been able to do all these years. They can create pockets of dominance. They can even stage violent incidents, but they as of today, they are not in a position to take over the country. So they have to realize that one of these days they'll have to come down from their high horse and come to some kind of a settlement, a peaceful settlement in Afghanistan. And the Americans also, as the Americans have desired, that they want to get out of Afghanistan. So they would like to have a settlement with Taliban, which would create post-withdrawal, which would create a peaceful, country, not again taken over by another civil war. So for that, Pakistan, I believe, is very important, has been very close to the Taliban. And I'm not very sure how much Pakistan has delivered up till now. I mean, the kind of reception our Prime Minister got from the Americans, it appears
it's unprecedented, sir.
Yes, unprecedented, unexpected. The Pakistan must have delivered, but it's very highly substantial.
So the US authorities, especially their president, very, very clearly mentioned that the previous governments whether the American government
Well,
or the Pakistani
Faisal,
government, they
I'm
were not
not-
cooperating very well,
Yeah,
and
I'm
there
not
was a lot
very
of trust
sure
deficit.
about
But
the
this time he has
governments.
shown a lot of.
I'm not sure of the government. See, Afghan policy has always been in the hands of the GHQ. It was never in the hands of the political governments. Even today, I'm not very sure that Imran Khan knows the intricacies of Afghan situation. It is the GHQ which has all the facts. I mean, they have been handling this situation all along. So I'm not very sure that it was because of the civilian governments that nothing happened. Only, I mean, all these years, Americans were accusing Pakistan being playing a double game. They were accusing Pakistani army for that, Pakistani intelligence agents for that. But they have also been accusing Pakistan of taking money from them, even the military assistance, but not doing what they wanted Pakistan to do. I mean, they always wanted Pakistani army to do more. I mean, the civilian government had nothing to do with what was happening in Afghanistan.
Now, Ambassador Saab, the Prime Minister of Pakistan has assured the US President very clearly. He said that I want to assure the President of USA that we will do everything within our power to facilitate the Afghan peace process. Now, the role of Pakistan was minimized a few years ago, if you remember, sir. They were not even a part of the talks. But later on, since Pakistan took the initiative, and eventually Pakistan, along with China, Russia, and countries like USA, are finalizing the strategy in Afghanistan. So they have accepted our role, they have accepted the importance of Pakistan, and finally, obviously, we are the neighbors, sir, and we have a huge porous border with Afghanistan as well. Now, this particular assurance from Pakistan, sir, do you think it means in one way or the other that Pakistan is going to do more now? Do more? And if so, what exactly were they expecting which we were not earlier delivering? And what have we delivered which they have recently appreciated, sir?
Well, very crucial question you have asked, and very difficult one. Reason being that now the dialogue between the US and the Taliban has entered a very crucial stage. We all know that the two issues regarding American withdrawal and assurances from the Taliban not to allow Afghan territory to be misused by extremists and terrorists. By and large, there is agreement. But on two other issues, intra-Afghan dialogue and ending of the attacks or cessation of hostilities, that is yet to be decided. But a fair amount of work has been done, and there is some progress. Why I'm saying this is because Taliban were coaxed by Pakistan. They were encouraged. Reason being that being an unknown entity without an address, they cannot rule the country. This is for sure. And they could have launched a attack, or they could claim that they have occupied 50% of the country and they can contest another 20%, which means 70% of the country. But the question is legitimacy, whether they are legitimate, you can say, rulers of that land which they already have. So in this respect, I think the political solution is required. What Pakistan has succeeded in convincing the Americans is that rather than opting for the military solution, it is better to opt for the political solution. And that has now started paying dividends. Here for Pakistan, as Ziauddin Saab has been saying, for Pakistan the difficulty was that there were external forces which were involved in Afghanistan right after 9/11. And they tried to create their own spaces there at the cost of Pakistan's interests. And this is something which then Pakistan had to then rethink what kind of a cooperation Pakistan can render in the whole Afghan situation. And that is very crucial for Pakistan's national security. When we say that Pakistan has not been cooperating, as the United States has been accusing, then the United States has also realized that they have to look at the external factors who are playing the role of the spoilers. And I think, in my view, it's my personal view, that I think United States have also convinced those spoilers, especially the Indians, that they have to behave. And this is very important as far as Afghanistan is concerned, because you cannot ignore the role of Pakistan. When you look at Afghanistan, I've said it earlier also, that in the neighborhood, in Afghanistan's neighborhood, it is only and only Pakistan which has given tremendous amount of access to the Afghans. 50 to 60,000 Afghans straddle Pakistani border every day without visas.
Yeah.
On the contrary, you look at the Afghanistan's other neighbors, Iran, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, and China. They don't allow free access to the Afghanis. Then we have traditional relationship as far as trade is concerned. Almost 80% of their transit trade passes through Pakistan.
To Pakistan, yes.
Similarly, Pakistan is still the largest trading partner of Afghanistan. There have been talks of diverting it to elsewhere, but it cannot happen. Reason being, there is a symbiotic relationship between the two countries. So our Americans have now realized that. So, and then that's why the best thing, or you can say the ice breaking came when I think Indians have been told not to play the spoilers role. And so the inside Afghanistan, those who have been supported by the Indians, that must have played a crucial role, and in making those people, those elements understand that if you want peace, then there has to be, you have to play the game according to the rules. So this is what I can say for the time being, and that's why on Afghanistan, very positive, you can say, statements have come out from Washington, and that's why President Trump acknowledged that Pakistan, among the actors, Pakistan is the most crucial actor as far as Afghanistan is concerned. And this is a big acknowledgement.
Acknowledgement, and also it's a reality.
It is
Interestingly, yeah. Now, please, sir, you want to finish?
No, I just.
Now, Brigadier Saab, another important area, and that is about, again, since we are talking about the Afghan situation. Now, maybe it could be a year and a half, maybe 2 years. I mean, obviously, they'll formulate a strategy and then they'll look into the details also. Now, sir, to the understanding which we have recently got after reading the papers and the stories and the articles, that Pakistan was always looked upon from the prism of Afghanistan, especially by the Americans. Whenever you talk about Pakistan, it was AFPAC. So primarily, anything going wrong in Afghanistan, indirectly Pakistan was blamed, either by the Afghan government or by the Indians or other sources actually. But this time, you can see Prime Minister was very, very clear that the interest of the Americans would be looked after. But having said that, our interest also matters. So if Afghan soil should not be used against the Americans or their American interest, it should not be used against Pakistan. Do you think, sir, the Indians have got the message now? Or you think they will, at some stage, play the role of a spoiler as they have earlier played?
Well, the Indians always get the message, but they are plagued by their own thinking, the extremist thinking that has been injected into the Indian government because of the style of governance and the basis on which the BJP won the elections. So that is the biggest impediment in the performance of the Indian governments internationally. Whether it is lynching of minorities or atrocities in Kashmir, or the concept that they have chosen, the path that they have chosen against their own constitution and against the Dalits and Muslims and Sikhs and Christians, is the biggest impediment of the Indian understanding of global situation and their arrogance. I will tell you that the culmination of US-Pakistani rapprochement, should I say, or an understanding in South Asia, stems from some fundamental factors. And one big factor is that the NATO forces and the Americans were unable to subdue the Taliban. They have survived as a political and military force. The other thing is that since there was a stalemate in the strategic situation of US forces, NATO had gone, and Trump had promised America that he's going to finish the Afghan war, and his 2020 election is coming. I think the shift in policy stems from Donald Trump itself. Remember that he has said in his new South Asia policy that he will hit Pakistan at the time and place of his own choosing, and he has given us billions of dollars and we have not been sincere to them. I think that is all gone. There is a revision of US strategy in South Asia. And I think Pakistan, it is a success of Pakistani policy that in a sustained manner we have dwelled on the Afghan policy. The difference is that the government in Islamabad now is a thinking government. And although I would largely agree with my guest over here that the Afghan policy was basically engineered by the armed forces of Pakistan, army should I say, or the ISI. But there is no country in the world which works without the input of the institutions. The difference being that the army was, in the previous government, the army was saying something else, and the PMLN government and to an extent the PPP government was looking the other way. We had Hussein Haqqani, we had Memo Gate, and we have all that misunderstandings, and Osama bin Laden happened and all that stuff.
Salara incident.
Here you have a prime minister who has been saying that there has to be a negotiated settlement of the Afghan
Absolutely,
situation.
at the end of the day.
And people called him a Taliban Khan and whatnot and whatnot. In the US visit, the world realized that this man is not a pushover. He was respected. He was respected in the Congress by the US President and Pentagon and the Pakistani carcass everywhere. And I think his concept coincided with the concepts of, should I say, the army chief. And that is why we have been successful in that. The other thing I need to tell you is that the difference is that the Taliban now started to realize that there has to be a guarantor in peace negotiations with the Americans. Taliban cannot do it alone. And they see Pakistan, China and Russia in unison as a peace, as a guarantee for their effort. Pakistan has been instrumental in releasing Mullah Brother, who is the chief negotiator. He is in fact the engine of, he is serving as an engine and the dynamics of negotiation between the US and the Taliban themselves. There is a faction in Taliban who says no, we should go for military victory and then we should negotiate. But major portion of the Taliban, they think that the negotiated settlement should be there. On the other hand, I must also say that there is no guarantee that if a peace deal is achieved, it will end the Afghan war. They might still fight amongst themselves.
And what could be the reason for that?
The reason is that the intra-Afghan dialogue and the Afghan reconciliation it doesn't seem to be in a perfect manner to avoid the schism between Ashraf Ghani's government, some sort of ragtag security forces, the Northern Alliance, the ex-Northern Alliance, Farsi Band and the Pakhtuns. all Pathans are not Talibans and all Talibans are not terrorists also. They say that we are fighting a war for freedom. And then, lo and behold, you have the injection of Abu Bakr Baghdadi, who is supposed to be somewhere in Afghanistan. How has he come there? People are, wondering on that also. But I think Pakistan's policy is in a win-win situation. I think your initial question was that why should the Americans see the relations with Pakistan from the prism of Afghanistan? And that is exactly what the Prime Minister of Pakistan has been saying.
And he has also mentioned that Pakistan's point of view, or Pakistan as a country, it has never been represented properly in the US.
I was just going through, as you were giving your preamble, I was going through the statement, which is the last statement when Imran Khan was invited in the company of Nancy Pelosi, and he made a statement and he sort of summed up his US visit, in which he said that this visit serves as a great understanding with the Americans to understand the Pakistani point of view on a broader term rather than mistrust which prevailed earlier. I think it is a great achievement by Imran Khan that he has steered a policy and he has made the Americans realize that they can't trust Pakistan on certain matters, and the U.S.-Pakistan relationship has to be based broadly, particularly when Iran was discussed at a great length during his visit, and Imran Khan spoke to that think tank organization in Iran very well. There's a tricky situation for the Americans. They don't know how to get out of it now that they have sent their aircraft carriers into the Gulf, and there is a standoff between Britain and Iran on capturing of the oil trawlers, etc. And they still have to come to terms with the Iran thing. And I don't think the Americans are in a position to wage another war in the Middle East. They already have destabilized Iraq, they have destabilized Syria, Libya, and the only stable states are the Gulf states, Saudi Arabia, the Arabian Peninsula, which is enveloped by Yemen, is also in trouble. So I think there are certain announcements in the policy that the Americans have announced about South Asia, but I think behind the doors much more would have been discussed. Pakistan's economy, if it grows properly and if the security situation improves, I think we are in a winning situation.
All right. Now, sir, coming to the Pak-India relationship, and Pakistan obviously is a country, sir, which has suffered a lot by the Indians, whether you talk about the previous wars or otherwise, especially when we talk about the LOC issue. Again, there were casualties recently. Now, sir, Donald Trump has very clearly said that on the sidelines of the SCO, Mr. Modi met me, and he in fact asked the US President to mediate or maybe to arbitrate or come up with some sort of a solution for Kashmir. But right after that, sir, the Indian authorities, they rejected that claim. But since Donald Trump was very casual, and he mentioned it to the Prime Minister that, this is what we had. And our Prime Minister said, but if you take if the Indians will take one step, we'll take two steps. We have tried our level best to restart the negotiation process, but it's India which is not complying to that. So do you think that Kashmir issue is a bigger issue, but at least the current situation can be diffused between the two countries if the Americans play a proper and vital role, sir?
See, Trump, perhaps the first American president, or maybe even the first Western leader who has actually mentioned Kashmir as a live issue. I recall after so many years, even after the end of the Cold War, when we thought that the Americans would now help us out in Kashmir, everybody forgot Kashmir. They would not talk about Kashmir. They would not listen about Kashmir. Even if we tried to talk about Kashmir. So we have to be very careful. See, we have had the experience of the Americans since about mid-50s. If we recall, Ayub Khan was a darling of the Americans when they signed CENTO. And the Americans, in their global interest, needed Pakistan at that time, at that period. And they wooed Mr. Ayub Khan as if he was the de Gaulle of the East. And what happened after a few years? He had to write that book, Friends Not Masters.
Yes.
And then look at Zia. Zia was again the darling of the Americans. And what happened after the end of the defeat of the Soviet Union? Just simply walked away from here, leaving the entire mess on Pakistan. And we suffered.
Not only walked away, sir, but remember what happened to Zia and his
yes. And we
closest
suffered
allies
for that. And then look at Mr. Musharraf. He was again the tightest buddy of Mr. Bush. He was again wooed. Now they are trying to woo Mr. Imran Khan. They have something on their mind. We have to be very careful. We have to have some kind of a balance looking at these issues, not to be, get ourselves sucked into another trap of the Americans. We have to very carefully to calculate what do the Americans want from us now. Perhaps they want Pakistan to make the Taliban to agree to stop violence and talk to the Kabul government. I'm not sure that Pakistan would be able to do that. But our Prime Minister has promised in the press conference, He said, I'll talk to the Taliban.
We'll do whatever we can.
Yes. It's a very, he's overreaching himself. He's over-promising. We should not be over-promising anything. We have to be very careful what we can deliver and return what we can get and save ourselves, not to be taken for granted as we did during the 50s and 80s and 2000. So and as far as Indians are concerned, they have, they're taking, perhaps as my friend told me about a few minutes back, that Mr. Modi is meeting Mr. Bush in September. And perhaps that is the reason why he's keeping quiet. He's not coming out with the real story about what happened in SEO. So although foreign minister has denied, the Indian foreign minister has denied that Mr. Modi did not promise anything about it, did not invite the Americans.
Maybe not in this context, but at least they must have had some sort of a conversation regarding Kashmir, sir.
They must have. I'm not saying that they didn't have. They must have something. They must have, because I'm not sure. I don't think Mr. Trump is lying. You can expect from Mr. Trump anything, but lying at this for this issue, on this issue, I think it's
on this issue, on that occasion. It doesn't make any sense.
Mr. Modi must have brought up the Kashmir issue because there is a bloodshed going on.
And one thing, sir, when Mr. Trump was talking about Kashmir, he mentioned a few things. He said, it has a beautiful name, but I've heard a lot of bombs are going on out there. Now, the point is that bombs are not going on out there. The Indian military, which is more than 700,000 in number, and they are actually killing the innocents. So I think the right picture should be presented to him also.
For the last 72 years, the biggest democracy in this world has not been able to win the hearts and minds of the Kashmiris. There must be something there, something happening there. The Kashmiris don't want to live with the Indians. They don't want to have anything
even
to do
people
with
from
with the
BJP
Indians.
or even Congress and other political parties, they do understand the reality, what's going on in Kashmir. So I'm sure, sir, something is brewing somewhere, because that is, if Kashmir is the real issue, should be taken care of. Maybe some sort of a settlement or some sort of an understanding with third party, but obviously the Indians never want a third party to intervene. They always say it's a bilateral issue, will remain a bilateral issue. Now, sir, as long as the bilateral issue is there, the problem is that they're not ready to talk. So this is going to continue forever then. Plus the way they are changing the demographics. Do you think, sir, Indians might be thinking that now if the referendum is held, it could favor them in certain areas? Because the way people are shifting to Kashmir, or maybe they can abolish certain laws also, and after that maybe the overall entire philosophy of Kashmir could be changed, sir.
I think it was in the statements coming from the BJP leadership talked about changing the demography, and by amending the Article 370 and 35A,
yes, sir,
which would allow them to purchase property. But I think that would be a big mistake Indians would be taking. And there are many voices cautioning the Indian leadership, especially BJP leadership, that Kashmir is already volatile and they should be very careful while they are taking this step. It is difficult at the moment. Secondly, what President Trump has said, as you have also mentioned, regarding the situation in Kashmir, and that is very important, because it's just not the mediation or arbitration suggestion from Prime Minister Modi to Trump. Mr. Trump also went a step ahead talking about resolving the issue in this region, and the Kashmir, a very beautiful place, and name is very beautiful, and then there are bombings every day and all that. So that should be a source of embarrassment for the Indians as well, because for them, the word Kashmir is like a red rag if it is raised elsewhere in the internationally or at a high-level visit like our Prime Minister and President Trump meeting. for the Indians, even on bilaterally when they are dragging their feet, but they know that it is now a source of embarrassment for India on daily basis. It is just not that an occasionally or accidental case in Kashmir that it may cause some embarrassment to them. No. And then recent report from the Human Rights Commission, the second report, first one was in June last year, and this one is just 3 weeks ago this report came. It has endorsed, and it is still demanding from India that they should allow a fact-finding mission to go to Indian-held Kashmir and find out what kind of atrocities. Atrocities have already been listed, but they want to confirm that how serious is the issue. They also know that the seriousness of the issue.
Blinding of the youngsters, I mean, that has
That's correct.
become a real issue, sir.
That is
And
correct.
the number is in thousands now.
And then this blinding or killing doesn't mean that it would add favor to India. People are going to, support, or they think they will submit to the Indians. It would increase the hatred. It has already increased the hatred against India. So I think President Trump has tried to play the role of a statesman and then the tribe. And since he also enjoys good rapport with Prime Minister Modi, and since he has struck a good rapport with Prime Minister Imran Khan, so these are the developments which are taking place and which may have some positive impact. I'm saying it with word caution, while I'm cautious also. Reason being that Indian mindset is very much there. They want to maintain the status quo at all cost. But the issue is people are agitating. It's not Pakistan that at the behest of Pakistan, no one is going to lay down his life. The Kashmiris are laying down their lives.
Sir, it's a homegrown, indigenous,
Of course.
very powerful
So now
movement.
I think President Trump must have received the briefings with regard to Kashmir also. And then Indians who are now the strategic partner of the United States, for them it would be an embarrassment that their strategic partner is indulging the kind of atrocities which otherwise they claim to be the world's largest democracy. So it's a blot on the Indian democracy. So these are the factors which are pressurizing India, its leadership, its institutions. The worldwide, wherever they go, and Pakistan in any case has been raising the issue, and Pakistan will continue to raise the issue. They cannot gag our voices. I mean, they
It's a
have
global village, sir. Now
they,
you can't.
they have
even if you
they
try,
have
you
realized.
cannot.
Yes, they have
Things are
realized.
changing and things will further
They have
change.
realized. So the question is, so I think things are coming to that pass. It may not happen perhaps tomorrow, but things are coming to that pass where, for instance, Soviet Union, no one could think about its implosion, say even in 1990. So, but it imploded into 15 states. It divided into 15. So, India is not an exception. So it would cause further fissiparous tendencies inside
Absolutely,
India
and
if they do not resolve Kashmir in accordance with the UN resolutions. Reason being that Kashmir is the only dispute, apart from Palestine, which are at the international agenda for the past 70 years.
All right. Now, Brigadier Saab, couple of points, sir, when we talk about Pakistan and India. Now, when you talk about Kashmir issue that has been talked about in USA, been discussed between the two leaders, you talk about aggression of the Indians. I mean, the 27th February, I mean, nobody can forget. That's when the Americans intervened. Though the president was looking after the affairs of North Korea and he was in Vietnam, but Mr. Pompeo still mentioned, I remember, that we were more concerned about this issue. So eventually, this issue was taken care of for the time being. Now, sir, do you understand that American interest in Iran or in the Persian Gulf, for that matter, in Afghanistan, and obviously Pakistan now, they really believe that has a vital role to play. Looking at all this and then coming up with a narrative that now the relationship will improve. This is what both the leaders have vowed. Whether you talk about trade or otherwise, sir, or the cooperation against the war on terror, do you believe, sir, this is the beginning of a new era as far as Pak-US ties are concerned? I'm not saying there will be strategic partners, or there will be some sort of, very close allies, but at least respect us, we'll respect you. That kind of an attitude, sir.
I think the Americans had a problem in their bad showing in the Middle East and in South Asia, coupled with the Chinese effort to develop into this region. And if you look at the American effort to create a base in Sri Lanka in the Indian Ocean, right in the middle of Strait of Malacca and Suez Canal, and of course we discussed the other day, Timan had said whoever controls the Indian Ocean controls the world. They are worried about their strategic position in the
Indo-Pacific.
in the Indo-Pacific. And remember that when they entered into a strategic partnership with the Indians, and they sort of wanted India to achieve certain things in the Asia Pacific which the Indians failed. And the Americans have realized that it is beyond the Indian capability of what the US is demanding from them with respect to China. So this is a very subtle thing and a very important thing to understand in the strategic dynamics in terms as to what are the problems that the Americans might face in the region if they neglect or ignore Pakistan. This is a fundamental thing to understand, because in Middle East they have lost halfway to their markets, etc. Putin is resurging, Chinese are flexing their muscle, European Union is not listening to the Americans as they used to before. They've had a spat with the UK government over that ambassador thing and all. So under all these circumstances, given the situation that the Americans had a strategic stalemate in Afghanistan, I think Pakistan emerges to be in the US equation in those terms globally and regionally much more as compared to the yesteryears. Therefore, I always say that the US-Pakistan relationship has to be built beyond Afghanistan. It has to be first regionally, then you have to look at it from the Central Asian point of view, and then globally. These are the three tiers that the US government might be seeing, and the first two tiers more important than the third one. I think Pakistan is hard to be ignored. They tried to cow down Pakistan through fanning terrorism by the raw, and some people say through the unison of the CIA. But all these years Pakistan has survived in a harder, although we have suffered, but I think we fought a successful war against terrorism, against the fifth generation war that the enemy launched against us. And we have a government at a place. It's very important to understand that you cannot lead the government in Islamabad now, like you had the excess with the Sharifs and Zardaris and all that. There's a difference. I mean, Nawaz Sharif had Sartar Jazeed sitting in the Foreign Office, and then Fatmi in the Prime Minister's house, and people doubted his credentials over there, and the Foreign Office were virtually inert in that area, and the People's Party government was not getting the correct sort of a Prime Minister in the center. So how can a country function like that, which has a war on its doorsteps in Afghanistan, and which the economy is dwindling?
But sir, eventually you think now we are moving in the right direction.
Indeed we are.
This course of action should have been adopted much earlier.
Although the opposition and the political parties do not understand, when it comes to Pakistan relationship and Pakistan's position and economy in the world, they should not have political point scoring. And I must commend Bilawal in that.
For supporting the Prime Minister,
very
yes.
positive statement.
Very positive.
But the PML government does not understand as yet what is there good for Pakistan. I think people realize that. And people also realize that there has not been requisition of limousine and 7-star hotels and whatnot, and 777 going with 250 people with the Lafafa holder journalists and all that.
The other countries and the leaders and the people, they all observe and they have their own comments.
Remember
on that
what
as
the
well.
Dutch pilot said while he was told to hold, and he said, why? He said, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, the entourage is landing. Why do they need aid? They're so rich.
Yeah. But anyway, thank you very much. Ambassador, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much, sir. And that's all we have for this. I'll see you tomorrow, inshallah. Till then, you take good care.